Commander Rhiannon Hayes stood at the helm of her stealth vessel, the Shadow Seeker, watching the crystalline surface of Europa 7 shimmer beneath twin moons. After 15 years in the Terran Space Force, she'd seen her share of beautiful worlds, but something about this one made her skin prickle with unease. "Commander, thermal readings are fluctuating wildly in Sector 7. Lieutenant Frost reported from his station, his dark fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Rhiannon brushed a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face, a habit from her younger days that persisted despite the military regulation cut. At 43, she was one of the youngest commanders in the fleet, and moments like these reminded her why. She trusted her instincts. "Take us in closer, but maintain stealth protocols," she ordered, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. The Shadow Seeker's engines hummed silently as they descended through the planet's upper atmosphere. The mission was supposed to be routine: investigate unusual energy signatures on this supposedly uninhabited moon. But in all her years of service, Rhiannon had never seen readings quite like these. They suggested a level of technology far beyond anything humans or their known alien adversaries possessed. As they broke through the cloud cover, the true nature of the crystalline surface became clear. What had appeared to be natural formations from orbit were actually the ruins of an ancient civilization, their structures still gleaming with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "By the stars," Frost whispered, his usual professional demeanor cracking in awe. Rhiannon was about to respond when the ship's systems suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the bridge in an eerie red glow. "Report," she barked, but before anyone could respond, a massive shape emerged from the crystals below. It moved with impossible grace for its size, its body seeming to shift between solid matter and pure energy. The creature was unlike anything in their database. It had the general form of what ancient humans would have called a dragon, but its scales seemed to be made of living starlight, and its eyes held an intelligence that sent chills down Rhiannon's spine. "Evasive maneuvers," she commanded, but the controls were unresponsive. The creature, the being, reached out with what looked like a tendril of pure energy, enveloping the ship in a soft violet glow. Instead of crushing them as Rhiannon expected, the being's touch was gentle. A voice echoed in her mind, rich and resonant with ages of wisdom. "Your kind should not be here, yet here you are." Interesting. Rhiannon felt a presence brush against her consciousness, foreign yet oddly familiar. Images flashed through her mind. Stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, and a terrible darkness spreading across the galaxy. The being's form shimmered, condensing and transforming until it stood on the bridge of her ship in a more humanoid form, though still towering at nearly 8 feet tall. Its skin retained a faint luminescence, and those penetrating eyes fixed on her with unnerving intensity. "I am Kadesh," it spoke aloud this time, its voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "Last guardian of the Starborn, and you, Commander Rhiannon Hayes, have stumbled into a war far older than your species." Rhiannon's hand instinctively moved to her sidearm, but she kept it holstered. Something told her that if this being meant them harm, they would already be dead. "How do you know my name?" Kadesh's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Your thoughts speak loudly, Commander. Your mind burns bright with curiosity and courage, rare qualities in these dark times." "Sir," Frost interrupted, his voice tense, "we're picking up multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Registry matches Drachnid warships." The Drachnids, humanity's most feared enemies. Rhiannon's muscles tensed, but Kadesh's reaction surprised her. He hissed, a sound like static electricity crackling through the air. "The corrupted come," he growled. "They seek what they cannot have, the power of my people's legacy." His form flickered, scales of light rippling across his skin. "Your arrival was not chance, Commander. The patterns of fate are rarely so simple." Rhiannon made a split-second decision that would change the course of history. "Then help us understand. What are we really fighting against? Kadish's eyes met hers, and in that moment, she saw eons of loneliness, of watching civilizations tear themselves apart in wars they didn't understand. Perhaps, he said softly, it is time for the truth to be known. The ship's systems suddenly came back online, but now they hummed with a new energy, crystalline patterns spreading across the displays. I will show you, Kadish declared, but know that once you see the truth, you can never return to the comfortable lies that have guided your people's wars. Are you prepared for that, Commander Hayes? Rhiannon straightened her spine, feeling the weight of the moment. I've spent my life fighting for what I believed was right. If those beliefs were built on lies, I need to know. As the Drachnid ships approached and Kadish's power merged with their systems, Rhiannon felt the universe shift around her. She was about to learn that everything she knew about the war, about her enemies, about the very nature of their conflict, was part of a deception spanning millennia. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she felt something else. A connection forming, delicate as starlight, but strong as gravity itself, binding her fate to this mysterious being who was about to turn her world upside down. The Shadowseeker's engines pulsed with crystalline energy as Kadish's power merged with their systems. Through the view screen, Rhiannon watched the approaching Drachnid warships with a mixture of dread and fascination. Their obsidian hulls absorbed light like black holes, a stark contrast to Kadish's luminescent presence beside her. Your enemies are not what they seem, Kadish said, his voice resonating through her bones. Watch. The crystalline energy flowing through the ship's systems created a new display, showing the Drachnid ships in a different spectrum. Beneath their fearsome exterior, patterns of familiar energy signatures pulsed, patterns that matched human technology. That's impossible, Frost whispered, but Rhiannon's mind was already racing ahead. They're hybrids, she breathed. Human tech merged with something else. But how? Why? Kadish's form shimmed with what might have been anger. The same forces that destroyed my people have been manipulating yours for generations. The Drachnids you fear so much. They are your own kind, transformed by technologies they don't understand, convinced they are a superior species. The revelation hit Rhiannon like a physical blow. Every battle she'd fought, every soldier she'd lost, every victory and defeat, all part of an elaborate deception. Who? She demanded. Who would do this? The architects, Kadish replied, his eyes darkening to the color of deep space. They seed conflict between species, harvesting the energy of war itself. Your humanity and the Drachnids are merely their latest pawns. A proximity alarm blared. The Drachnid ships had launched fighters, their trajectories forming a perfect attack pattern. Rhiannon's training kicked in, but before she could give orders, Kadish placed a hand on her shoulder. His touch sent electricity racing through her nerves, not unpleasant but intensely alive. Trust me, he said softly, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she did. The crystalline energy surrounding their ship pulsed once, and suddenly they were somewhere else, inside what appeared to be a vast chamber of living crystal. The space hummed with power, and through transparent walls, Rhiannon could see they were deep beneath Europa 7's surface. Welcome to the last sanctuary of my people, Kadish said, his form expanding slightly as he drew energy from their surroundings. Here, I can show you the truth without interference. The chamber came alive with holographic images, the rise and fall of civilizations, the subtle manipulation of species against each other, and always in the shadows, watching, were beings of pure geometry, the architects. They feed on conflict, Kadish explained, his voice heavy with ancient grief. My people discovered their existence and tried to warn others. We were eliminated for our trouble. Rhiannon found herself moving closer to him, drawn by the pain in his voice. You've been alone all this time, watching this happen. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw millennia of solitude. I am the last guardian. It is my duty to wait for those strong enough to break the cycle. And you think that's us? Humans, Rhiannon laughed bitterly. We can't even stop fighting among ourselves. I think it's you, Kadish said simply, and something in his tone made her heart skip. Your mind is different, Rhiannon Hayes. You question. You seek truth. You feel. He trailed off as the chamber's crystals suddenly pulsed red. Above them, they could feel the impacts of drachnid weapons attempting to breach the moon's surface. They're trying to reach the sanctuary, Kadish growled. The architects must have realized I found an ally. Rhiannon's tactical mind was already working. My crew, we have to get back to them. They are safe. I transferred them to a secure chamber before bringing you here. Kadish's form flickered with concern. But you should know, helping me means becoming a target of both sides. The architects have agents everywhere, in both human and drachnid high command. Rhiannon thought of her career, her duty, everything she believed in. But she also thought of all the senseless battles, the lives lost in a war that now seemed orchestrated by invisible puppet masters. I didn't join the Space Force to serve someone else's agenda, she said firmly. Show me how to fight back. Kadish's form brightened, and for a moment she caught a glimpse of his true self, a being of pure starlight and wisdom. But there was something else in his expression, something very human in its vulnerability. It begins with trust, he said, extending his hand. Energy danced between his fingers, a sharing of minds. But I must warn you, this connection cannot be undone. You will see all that I am, and I will see all that you are. Rhiannon looked at his offered hand, understanding the magnitude of the choice before her. Everything she knew had been a lie. Her enemies were her own transformed people. Ancient beings manipulated their wars for energy. And now an alien creature who could become a dragon was offering to share his mind with her. It was insane. It was impossible. It was. She took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, the universe exploded behind her eyes. She saw the birth of stars, the death of worlds, the long loneliness of watching civilizations burn. She felt Kadish's pain, his hope, his fascination with her species' resilience. And through it all, she felt something else growing, a connection that defied explanation. When the vision cleared, they were still holding hands, and Rhiannon knew nothing would ever be the same. The architects will send everything they have to stop us, Kadish warned, but his hand tightened on hers. Rhiannon smiled, feeling the power of their combined strength flowing between them. Let them try. Above them, the first drachnid ships began their descent through Europa 7's atmosphere, while deep in the Crystal Sanctuary, a human commander and an ancient guardian prepared to change the course of galactic history, together. The crystalline sanctuary trembled as another wave of drachnid weapons fire penetrated deeper into Europa 7's crust. Rhiannon felt the impacts both physically and through her new connection with Kadish, each blast resonating through their shared consciousness like ripples in a pond. We need to evacuate your crew, Kadish said, his form shifting between humanoid and dragon as he channeled power through the sanctuary systems. The architects will not stop until they've destroyed this place, and us with it. Rhiannon nodded, military training kicking in despite the revolutionary changes of the past few hours. The Shadow Seeker has stealth capabilities they don't know about. If we can get everyone aboard. She stopped as Kadish suddenly tensed, his entire being flaring with alarm. Through their link, she felt what he sensed. A new presence entering the system, vast and cold and geometrically perfect. An architect, he growled, his voice carrying harmonics that made the crystal walls resonate. They rarely intervened directly. This is unprecedented. The sanctuary's holographic displays showed a ship materializing above Europa 7. If it could be called a ship, it looked more like a mathematical equation given physical form, its surfaces shifting in ways that hurt the human eye to observe. Your species was not meant to learn the truth so soon, the voice echoed through their minds, as precise and inhuman as the ship above. This deviation must be corrected. Rhiannon felt Kadish's rage surge through their connection, but there was something else beneath it. Fear, not for himself, she realized, but for her and her crew. "I won't let them harm you," he said privately through their link, his mental voice fierce with protection. "We protect each other," she responded, surprising herself with the intensity of her own feelings. This connection between them, whatever it was becoming, gave her strength she never knew she possessed. The sanctuary's crystals began to pulse with building energy as Kadesh activated ancient defenses. Through their link, Rhiannon understood what he planned, a desperate gambit that might save them or destroy everything. "Your crew is in Chamber 3, he told her. "Get them to your ship. I'll hold off the architect." "Like hell you will," Rhiannon snapped, drawing her sidearm even though she knew it would be useless against such beings. "I've seen your memories, Kadesh. The last time you faced an architect alone was millennia ago," he finished, his form fully shifting to his dragon aspect, starlight rippling across scales that put the sanctuary's crystals to shame. "And I wasn't protecting something so important then." Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything else fell away. The approaching architect, the Drachnid ships, the weight of galactic conspiracy, all of it seemed distant compared to the gravity between them. A massive impact rocked the sanctuary, breaking the moment. Through the crystalline walls, they could see geometric patterns eating through the moon's surface like mathematical acid. "Go," Kadesh said softly. "Save your people. I'll buy you time." Rhiannon reached up, touching his scaled face. The texture was like touching the surface of a star, warm and impossibly smooth. "I'm coming back for you." "That's not a request, it's a fact." His dragon form eyes, ancient and wise, softened with an emotion that transcended species. "I know." She turned and ran, feeling his presence in her mind like a warm flame as she sprinted through crystal corridors toward her crew. Behind her, she felt rather than saw Kadesh rise up, his true form expanding to meet the threat above. As she reached Chamber 3, finding her crew shaken but alive, Rhiannon realized something that should have terrified her but instead filled her with certainty. Somewhere between first contact and now, she had fallen in love with a being who could reshape reality. "Commander," Frost said as she entered, "what the hell is going on up there?" "The truth," she replied, checking her tactical display. The Shadow Seeker was still where they'd left it, its systems enhanced by Kadesh's power, and we're about to make sure everyone knows it. Above them, Kadesh engaged the architect in a battle that bent space itself, buying them time with every moment of resistance. Through their connection, Rhiannon felt his determination, his pain, and his hope. Hope that after eons of solitude, he had finally found something worth fighting for. As she led her crew toward their ship, Rhiannon made a silent promise. This wasn't just about exposing a conspiracy anymore. This was about proving that love could exist even between the stars. That connection could transcend form and time and space itself. The architect wanted to correct a deviation. Well, they were about to learn that some deviations were meant to be. The Shadow Seeker cut through Europa 7's atmosphere like a blade through silk, its enhanced systems humming with crystalline energy. Rhiannon stood at the helm, her consciousness split between commanding her ship and maintaining her connection with Kadesh, who still battled the architect above. Through their link, she witnessed a war beyond human comprehension. Kadesh's dragon form clashed with the geometric perfection of the architect, their conflict warping the very fabric of space. Light bent, time stuttered, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. "Lieutenant Frost," she called, broadcast on all frequencies, every channel, every band, both human and Drachnid. "Mom?" Frost's fingers hovered over his console. "That'll give away our position to everyone." "That's exactly what we want." Rhiannon felt Kadesh's approval through their bond. The architects have maintained their power through secrecy. It's time to drag them into the light. As Frost worked, Rhiannon closed her eyes, focusing on the connection she shared with Kadesh. His memories flowed through her, centuries of watching, waiting, hoping for this moment. She let her own memories flow back to him. Her childhood dreams of the stars, her years of service, her growing realization that this war had never made sense. Coming up on optimal broadcast range, Frost reported. Above them, the architect's ship pulsed with impossible geometries. Your species is not ready, it projected into all their minds. Order must be maintained. Order? Rhiannon's voice shook with controlled fury as she activated the broadcast. You mean the order of endless war? Of turning us against ourselves? Through their enhanced systems, she transmitted everything. Kadesh's memories of the architect's manipulations, the truth about the Drachnid's transformation, the evidence of corruption at the highest levels of both civilizations. The response was immediate. The Drachnid ships above them faltered, their formations breaking as crews received the transmission. Through intercepted communications, they heard confusion, denial, and then understanding. The cycle ends now. Kadesh's voice boomed across all frequencies, his dragon form blazing with starlight. Humanity, look upon your lost children. Drachnids, see what you once were. The architect's ship rippled with what might have been rage. This changes nothing. They will destroy themselves without our guidance. No, Rhiannon said firmly, her voice carrying to every ship in the system. We will choose our own path. She felt Kadesh's strength failing as he held the architect at bay. Without hesitation, she did something no human had ever attempted. She opened herself fully to their connection, offering him her own energy, her own life force. The effect was instantaneous. Kadesh's form blazed brighter than a newborn sun, his scales reflecting the light of 1,000 galaxies. Through their bond, Rhiannon felt his surprise, his gratitude, and something deeper, something that made her heart soar despite the danger. Impossible, the architect projected, its perfect geometries showing the first signs of fracture. Commander, Frost called urgently. The Drachnid ships. They're moving to our position. Rhiannon held her breath, watching as the massive warships approached. But instead of attacking, they took up defensive positions around the Shadowseeker. We stand with our human kin, a Drachnid commander's voice crackled over the comms. The lies end today. The architect's ship began to pulse with building energy, preparing a final devastating attack. But Kadesh was ready. Through their connection, Rhiannon felt him gathering power, not just his own, but the combined energy of human determination and Drachnid strength. You sought to harvest the energy of conflict, Kadesh declared. Let us show you the power of unity instead. The sanctuary's crystals pulsed in harmony with their shared power. Human technology, Drachnid strength, and ancient starborn wisdom combined in a single perfect moment of synchronization. The blast that followed was like a supernova of pure possibility. The architect's ship, for all its mathematical perfection, couldn't withstand the force of 3 civilizations choosing to write their own destiny. As the light faded and the geometrically perfect ship dissolved into nothingness, Rhiannon felt Kadesh's consciousness wrap around hers like a warm embrace. I never dared hope, his voice whispered in her mind, heavy with emotion. All these centuries, I waited for allies against the architects. Instead, I found something far more precious. Rhiannon smiled, feeling tears on her cheeks as she watched Drachnid and human ships begin tentative communications. We found each other, she corrected. And with that, we found hope for everyone. The stars seemed brighter somehow as Kadesh's dragon form descended toward the Shadowseeker, his scales still shimmering with the afterglow of their shared power. The war that had defined 2 civilizations was ending, not with a final battle, but with a first step toward healing. And through it all, the connection between a human commander and a starborn guardian pulsed stronger than ever, proving that love truly could bridge the gaps between worlds. 6 months after the Battle of Europa 7, Rhiannon stood in the newly constructed Crystal Spire on Earth, watching representatives from both human and Drachnid civilizations file into the Grand Chamber. The building itself was a testament to their new alliance, constructed with a fusion of human engineering, Drachnid craftsmanship, and starborn crystal technology. Through her permanent bond with Kedish, she felt his approach before she saw him. His form shifted seamlessly from dragon to humanoid as he landed beside her, starlight rippling beneath his skin. "The Architect's defeat has changed everything," he said, his voice carrying those familiar harmonics that made her heart flutter. "But change brings its own challenges." She knew what he meant. Despite the evidence they'd broadcast, despite the public reconciliation between humans and drachnids, there were still those who clung to the old hatreds. Small factions on both sides refused to accept the truth, launching desperate attacks that grew increasingly rare but remained dangerous. "They're afraid," Rhiannon said, watching as a human diplomat warmly greeted a drachnid elder below. Everything they believed in was a lie. It takes courage to face that. Kadish's hand found hers, their energies mingling in that now familiar dance. "Like the courage you showed when you first took my hand." She smiled, remembering that moment in the sanctuary. That wasn't courage. That was insanity. "The line between the two is often thin," he observed, his ancient eyes twinkling, "especially where matters of the heart are concerned." Their conversation was interrupted as Lieutenant Frost, now Captain Frost, approached with urgent news. "Commander Hayes, we've detected unusual energy signatures in the Proxima system. Similar to the Architect's ship," Rhiannon finished, feeling Kedish tense beside her. Through their bond, she sensed his concern. The Architects were a vast and ancient civilization. It had been foolish to think they'd only face one. But they were ready now. The Crystal Spire wasn't just a symbol of peace. It was the first of many combined defense installations. Human ingenuity, drachnid power, and starborn wisdom had created something entirely new. A civilization capable of standing against the manipulations of beings far older than their stars. "We should investigate," Kedish said, but Rhiannon heard the question in his voice. Even now, after everything they'd been through, he sometimes waited for her lead. "Together," she agreed, squeezing his hand. Their bond pulsed with shared purpose and something deeper, something that had grown stronger with each passing day. As they prepared to face whatever new challenge awaited them, Rhiannon reflected on how far they'd come. She was no longer just a human commander, and he was no longer just the last guardian. They were something new, something that proved love could transcend the boundaries of species and time itself. The Crystal Spire hummed with power around them, its heart beating in rhythm with the combined hopes of three civilizations. Above, the stars beckoned, not with the cold light of war, but with the promise of discovery. "Ready?" Kedish asked, his form already beginning to shift into his majestic dragon aspect. Rhiannon smiled, feeling their energies merge as she prepared to face whatever lay ahead. "With you. Always." As they soared into the atmosphere, their combined power leaving a trail of starlight in their wake, Rhiannon knew that while their story had begun in war, it would continue in hope. Together, they had proved that the greatest power in the universe wasn't conflict or mathematical perfection. It was the simple, profound miracle of two hearts choosing to beat as one. Behind them, the Crystal Spire gleamed like a beacon, its light reaching toward the stars that had once seemed so cold and distant. And in that light, humans and drachnids worked together, building a future that the Architects, with all their ancient wisdom, had never imagined possible. It was more than a victory. It was a beginning. And as Rhiannon and Kedish vanished into the depths of space, their love lighting the way forward, they carried with them the proof that sometimes the greatest revolutions start not with a declaration of war, but with a single moment of trust between two souls who dared to believe in something more. The end.